No longer am making the announcement that this meeting is being recorded, but the recording is actually on, so sorry about that.
And it recorded the last one, right?
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
I won't miss it.
Good afternoon. This is the Northfield City Council Budget Workshop Meeting, February 3rd of 2022. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on Saturday, January 22nd of this year. Based on CDC guidelines, City of Northfield has advised everyone 2 years of age or older who is not fully vaccinated should wear a mask in indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this requirement with signs at the entrances to the building. To ensure the health and safety of our employees and visitors, we are also continuing to adhere to social distancing requirements in our indoor public spaces, and as a result, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this afternoon. In order to ensure that the public may fully participate despite the limited in-person capacity, the meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live-streamed using Zoom conferencing service. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, had been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the meeting notice has been posted at the entrances to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as information on how members of the public could submit questions or comments in advance of this afternoon's meeting. For those participating by Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web participants may not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the City of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web participants, comments or questions may be submitted by the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written questions submitted in advance would be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting. And for today, there were none. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bucci.
Here.
Mr. Deweese.
Here.
Mr. Leeds.
Here.
Mr. Notaro.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Utz.
Here.
Mr. Palestina.
Here.
And Mr. Chow.
Here.
Mr. President.
Thank you. We begin this next budget season, obviously, it's the same speech. We will keep things as clear as we can. I know we want to do a lot of great things to go. We're in a pretty good position this year right now. Hopefully that continues, but we don't know what the next Greek letter is going to be, so, and how it might affect us. But we will, I hope everybody took a good review of everything, and so we can move forward and get through some of these departments and capitalize. That said, Dawn, would you suggest we start with the capital, or
Let's not.
it's not?
Yeah.
Oh,
How
all
about
right.
we go
Let's go
through,
through it.
let's go through the budget stuff.
All right.
This little summary that I did, so everybody's aware of what our timelines are and how we got to where we are right now with a little summary of our financials.
Thank you.
Okay, so obviously we have to, our budget deadline was extended again. I don't think in 26 years it's ever been on time, but, so we have to introduce by March 31st and adopt by April 29th. Now, the sooner we do that, the sooner we can start our projects and you can accomplish your goals for the year. We have a 2.5% COLA, which means that's the amount we can increase our expenses inside the cap, but some of our expenses were over 5 and 5.6%, especially wastewater and tipping, and we know what's happening with the ACUA, right? We are under local examination, so we won't have to wait for division review. We had added assessments of $3.5 million. We are currently waiting on the 2022 net value taxation, net value taxable. We got an extension of 127 to close our books, and I'm just waiting for the tax assessor to get back to me with those numbers. You know, typically, we've been having revenue declines of between the 9 and 13 million. It's been leveling off, and that's due to the tax appeals. So we'll see where we end up once we get our book back from the county. Our tax collection rate was up a little bit to 98.46. That is a very good tax collection rate. The people in Northfield are very diligent about paying their taxes. And we had an available surplus increase of $946,000. I think that's the highest increase we've had since I've been here, the last 10 years or so. We generated $2.3 million in income with operations, and I'll give you a little sum up of where that came from, because it's not going to happen in subsequent years, so everybody don't get excited. We had $197,000 more in miscellaneous revenue than we anticipated. Now, primarily that is the Gerwitz sewer hookup fees. We're starting to see them come in, and once that project is completed, that's going to go away, right? So combined with that is the construction fees. So construction fees were up quite a bit this year, again, because of those big projects that are coming online. And let's see, we had more than anticipated in our current tax collection. Like I told you, it went up a little bit, so we had 670-some thousand generated from that. And we had $520,000 in revenue we didn't anticipate. Now, $420,000 of that came from the Corona virus local recovery funds. Now, Northfield was allotted $840,000, so we got half of it they sent last year, and our second tranche we'll receive this year. Now, what happened is we put it in unanticipated revenue, and then we're reappropriating that as revenue in that surplus figure you see in the budget.
Okay.
And the second half of that is anticipated as revenue in the budget, and we'll talk about that more later, because if we use that as revenue to offset the revenue losses which we experienced, and believe it or not, we did experience a revenue loss based on the calculation that they gave us, because they anticipated our revenues would increase 4%, and they didn't. So we can take all that money and we have a broader latitude to use it, and basically we can use it for the general provision of government services, instead of having it meet into those 6 categories that we talked about before. But we'll talk about that in more detail, because right now I have it in as one line. You probably saw it in the budget where I just highlighted it. It says capital like 860-some thousand, just one lump. And once you make your decision of what you want to spend it on, we'll put it where it belongs. We also lapsed $700,000 from the 2020 budget, and that's because everybody was very careful, I guess, with their spending. So what we had appropriated in 2020 that wasn't spent goes back to fund balance so that we can reappropriate it. So that's where we ended up with that surplus balance of 3.4 million, which is pretty darn good. Last year we ended up with 2.4 million.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, you'll have those Corona local, it's ARPA or whatever, it's DLRF, it's referred to as either, to spend on projects. As far as the actual budget appropriations going down the list, our GIF premium was flat, even though the fund-wide went up 4% because we had a $67,000 dividend we applied. Health insurance was a big increase this year because there's a 5% blended rate, so early retirees were 31.8%, so that we have a lot of retirees still on our books that we're paying for. Pensions went down for the first time, I think, in forever. It was only $16,000, but still it went down. And then we talked about the ACUA, and you all know what's happening there with their increases of 5.6. We still have 2 bonds outstanding, and I attached a summary in your packet of what our debt is. And we have those unfunded ordinances of $4.78 million that will go to the market this year, and we'll fund, and hopefully we'll get good rates. See what happens there, but hopefully. So, the sooner the better, but prior to that, there was no
That's every
appetite.
day.
Yeah, so, any day now, the Fed is supposed to do something, so.
Stop you for a second.
Sure.
On the ACUA item,
That-
including?
Not in those percentages, but in the actual budget
Okay.
it is netted out for the, the 42,000? Correct.
Yeah,
Right,
reduction.
yeah. One thing I wanted to point out, I did not realize that our county court fee was 147, which is the same as what we were paying to Linwood last year. I missed a memo somewhere. So I'm gonna make that adjustment. I have 98 in there. It's gonna change to 147, but we'll absorb that with things that I changed. It's not gonna have an impact. So I set this budget at a 0 tax increase. And with using the ARPA funds as revenue, we are not allowed to decrease taxes. It's prohibited. You can't supplant tax increases with ARPA funds. 0 is fine, but you cannot have a decrease, and you cannot use it to offset debt service, which is kind of like the best way to get it back to your taxpayers, but that's the guidance the federal government made, and so that's what we have to live within. Other than that, the rest of the budget is pretty standard. The staffing levels are the same at this time. The anticipated revenues, we are still negotiating with 2 of the other units of government workers, with fire and police are already settled, and we have the non-aligned employees. That's pretty much it as far as what's going on with the budget and what went on with the finances last year.
So the 400 that we have in ARPA funds that are going into revenue, if they were used for, right now, since they're going in as revenue, they can be used as any general expenses?
Within reason, but yes, we have a lot more flexibility. So what'll
Okay.
happen is, I have that ARPA funding of 411, and then the rest of it, what did I say? The 429,000 that we got is encapsulated in that surplus number that's appropriated for revenue, because we got that last year. So it flowed right through,
Okay.
flowed through the fund balance, and now we're reappropriating. What's gonna happen is when we put it in the budget, we're gonna put it where it belongs, and then under this ARPA funding, it's gonna say, offset for public safety, blah, 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 offset for public works, blah, 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 whatever you decide to do it. We're not gonna say that, oh, we're building a playground, so take that off the record. So we're gonna say we're supplanting the funds that are required by the law, and then you're
Okay.
taking all that money that's freed up and doing all the other projects that we
Okay.
were talking about doing. Oh, and our wastewater went up 200,000. I
Yeah.
wanted to point that out.
Yeah. I know we had that at the beginning of the year, the flows were considerably higher. I didn't know if that, it seems like it flattened out during the year, but.
Right, and also our portion of the budget went up because the flows in Atlantic City went down.
Oh, yes.
Right, so that's what was driving that.
Yeah, that's what the 5% increase is.
For the
Oh,
five,
that's tipping, I'm sorry.
that's the tipping, and that's, just
Right.
what Rick
Okay.
Dobie and all them reported on. So, I guess the first thing you'd have to decide is, number one, if you wanted to go with some kind of spending plan like this, using the ARP funds this way, using that amount of surplus, and having a 0 tax increase. So,
As it stands right now, yeah. I mean, so using 688 of the surplus,
right,
and that's
More, yeah,
49%.
688 more.
49%.
Mhm.
That's not.
No, and then you'll see the surplus history. I mean, we're still within 5 or 9% of our operating budget as it stands now, and we'll still have a strong place to start next year. We have $258,000 more going into 2023 than we did going into 2022.
And then, the spending that was in the operating expenses, and well, all the appropriations pages, right? So you noted that spending was lower than anticipated, so the budget now this year is to those levels that we were last year, anticipating that it's gonna go back to the ordinary, where they were prior? Or where we
In
anticipated?
2021, yeah, the
Okay.
2020 is what was lapsed. We reserve it for a year, and then, so, 2 years, and then it lapses.
Okay,
Because we had COVID in 2020, right? We didn't spend it.
yeah,
Yeah. We did add another line this year for parks maintenance
Yeah.
for 25,000, because prior to this, we used to use money from the trust, and that is no longer available, right? There's no camping, there's none of that anymore, and it was, you know,
okay,
so we put that just to try and get a better handle and track it that way of what we're spending on the parks maintenance. So it might look like a big increase, but we took out of buildings and grounds, and we're moving things around just so we can track it better.
oh, because, yeah, it wasn't a designated,
Right, it wasn't a designated line
Right.
before.
and the other increases throughout that department is because that, one of the contracts has been, has gone through, correct, in public works,
Public Works, yeah, we have,
so one, yeah, we have one.
and there's some money in there because contracts are still being negotiated for the other 2 units.
Right,
Yeah, so
okay.
we have something in there for that.
Is there, and, we have a construction department in here as well,
Yeah.
okay,
It's all in there, reallocated.
okay. Does anyone from council have any questions?
So using a small amount of surplus, where will that leave us at the end of the year? Okay.
Well, we're using actually 688,000 more, which is the 400 from the Corona funds, and then 200 that we earned in excess. And then that still leaves us, if you look at your summary sheet there, and it has the surplus here in the middle, and it has the current surplus, what the prior year was, what we budgeted, and over here would be the balance and the difference. So you see that it would leave us with a balance of 258,000 higher than what we went in prior years. So we're using more, but we'll still have more left to kind
Yeah,
of
we're using
smooth it
two.
out next year.
We're using 2,080,000, not, the 688 is the increase, not the amount we're using as
Mhm.
surplus. Okay,
Yeah, and now this is subject to change based on the net valuation, right? Because
Yeah.
that's a big part of our revenue, that's how we allocate our levy. So as soon as Bill gets those numbers to me, and then I'll just adjust the surplus or the other revenues to keep it flat. If that's what you wanna do.
well, we can't, yeah.
Yeah.
If we can, yes, if we have, yeah, we have to do whatever, as I said, do what projects we need to do and what spending we have to have. I know people are getting things to,
I was getting
Wait.
requests today, but nothing that would impact the operating budget, so
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go back and tune up the capital. But I think tonight, you can give me a general idea of the projects that I put in your packet, right, that has a little chart, and that's the local recovery funds. Okay, and these are the requests that I got from the different departments about what they thought they would like to use the money for. You know, you see we had the playground, the concept 1 or 2 and B, and stormwater system and HVA system here at City Hall, the roof, and those types of things, so. Once you make a decision on what the projects you wanna do, and then I'll try and I will tie it out with the capital, because these projects will be quicker ones,
Big
so,
numbers.
yeah, maybe we wanna put it in our budget so everybody can get started on them right away. Cause some of them are, smaller, and we
Mhm.
wouldn't wanna finance them or anything in our capital.
Yes, okay. Okay. I see.
Don't- Did you get a quote for the football field snack bar roof?
I did, and that was kinda in capital, so, Greg and I talked a little bit about this morning, we had another meeting. $6,999.
Okay.
Is that, that was is that roof inspected, or is there something?
Yeah, they looked at it. It was inspected. There's missing shingles on it. It's getting old. Probably time. Maybe you get another year out of it. Maybe 2 years. It just,
No, we were trying to discuss that. Do you know if that's the original roof that's on there, or?
I'm not sure. Greg?
Well,
I'm
that's what we
assuming that
discussed.
it is.
I'm assuming it is.
Yeah.
It's not it's a 3-tab roof. They don't really use that much anymore, so
Okay.
I would assume so.
The Quinn was
It
gonna
is.
take
It
a look
is.
at it, and
Yeah,
How old
And,
is that,
um,
Mary? Is it?
Kopinski was here when we built that, right?
well, yeah, he started when I was on council in 2011, 12, somewhere in there.
So maybe 10 years, 11 years?
Shouldn't be lasting longer than that. So, well, anyway, we're gonna,
Yeah. It should.
I noticed
Public
some
Works is
shingles
gonna
that
do it.
fell off, but
yeah. As Greg said, the Public Works is gonna go over there and do a good inspection of it as
Take a
well.
look at it, yeah, sure.
Did you wanna go down the list?
Yes.
Let's go down this
Yep,
list.
Page 9, if you go to that,
Alright, so Greg, the playground concept, that was 110,000.
that is
What?
correct. We
Park?
picked one, so we don't need that, the 287 one.
I'll take
Mhm.
that
We
out.
don't need that one.
Take that one out.
Now, that 110 is going to increase a little bit because we have to do some site work. So we're going to have to get an engineer to prepare site plan, at least do some grades out there, because that price that 110 does not include site work.
yeah, I think, but it is something we definitely need to do. That equipment out there is,
We'll do
the
engineering.
equipment out there is in bad shape.
Does that,
Absolutely, it's
Does that in-
showing its age, there's pieces that are broke off, so it's well over probably 20 years old at least.
this 110 is just for the new product installed, it's not for the removal of the old one, or,
No,
No,
No, but Public Works said they would take care of the removal.
and then recycle the metal. It's not usable, to try to get it to any other location or to another, for
Yeah.
anybody else to use,
no.
it's, taking it apart and reassembling will probably just be a liability for somebody getting injured.
I'll scrap all the metal for weight.
Greg, when you
Yeah.
say we decided on option 2 or concept 2, who's we? Because this is the first I'm seeing it, right? So who decided that this is what we're going with?
Pretty much me.
What's that?
Me. This was, according to the representative, this was the best bang for your buck, the option that we chose.
That's something, that was with the committee as well, right? I mean, the advisory board discussed that as well?
They are in support of replacing it, but they have not seen this because we didn't meet last month. But they will see it this next meeting.
Is there any further talk of a pickleball court? Is that scratched for now?
No, it hasn't been scratched, we're still discussing it. That'll be at the next meeting.
And also the proposal for the playground has been in
Mhm.
the clerk's office for the past year.
But both of those were in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a general question? So, don't they did a safety inspection of different areas in the city?
Yeah, they recently went through, I don't know I don't know what areas they actually did, but yes.
So do they, like, do we get a report on that, so that we can look at this to see that everything, or that we should be considering is on this project list, or did you consider that before you made this?
Well, we get the loss control reports, but there's nothing substantive in
Okay,
there. It's
that's
like,
what I was
hey, replace that mat by the door, or, put a CO detector up. I mean, they're not something that are serious, safety issues.
I just wanted to ask you that.
Thanks.
Yeah, so, do we have an estimate, Greg, for the grading? What do you think that would cost, something?
I'll have to find out, I don't have, right off the top of my head, I
Put
don't have one, so
something
I'll
in
have to
there for
find
now.
out tomorrow. I'll get you an answer tomorrow.
You're talking about for the playground?
Yeah,
Yes.
just
And
one- I was
are we
just wondering.
resurfacing that in any way?
Mulch.
Just small.
The fiber mulch. That was in the proposal.
Greg, you may be able to answer this question. The bleachers, did we put in for putting more bleachers out there so we don't have to move them back and forth anymore?
We have not put in for bleachers.
We
no.
haven't. It seems like it's
For,
time.
What field are we talking about specifically?
Well, I think what we're doing, right, is we're taking them off the football field and moving them over.
That's correct. At least one set,
Yeah.
from baseball
Public Works
side
is
to
moving them
football.
back and forth, and, they tend to get damaged that way. I mean, maybe we start thinking about,
These are better to move than the older ones.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they cost, but,
They're pricey.
are they?
The ones that are out there now, several years ago, when Tim Crew was here, we purchased a bunch of them, and we got a group of volunteers to put them all together,
Mm-hmm.
and they're pretty pricey.
And we
Yeah.
have a very strict set of guidelines we have to adhere to for insurance purposes with regard to bleachers. So you can't just buy the best, cheapest one. There's a
Right.
pretty strict standard.
Yeah, you gotta buy the good one,
You gotta have the rails.
the rails,
around
the cage.
Gaps
Sure.
are a minimum distance.
Yeah. Do you know approximately how much they are?
We priced them a few years ago, and I don't remember off the top of my
I-
head. It was in the hundreds of thousands to re-bleacher all the fields.
Wow.
I think for one, you're probably looking anywhere from 15 to 17,000.
To
Pricey.
add one that we don't have, for the one that we're moving all the
What's the
time.
size of when we're moving?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's.
Well,
Um,
it's a thought.
Well, see if we can find out a number between now and next meeting to see if it fits this year, or at least we can get it in the.
I could go online and get a,
Yeah.
pretty
And we
quick
at least get it-
estimate.
At least get it in this,
Yeah.
on the radar, so we have it for next year at the worst case.
Is
Yeah,
this
I-
one of
like I
those
said, I did
bleachers?
before, but I don't remember the exact price.
Pardon?
Would this be a similar bleacher to what's there on the home side? With the cage and the,
No, the one on the other side, the one on the visitor side that gets moved.
right, but would we, when we replace, because Mary was saying there's some strict guidelines, would we have to replace it with the, similar to what's on
I
the
guess
home
it-
side?
Well, that's what we have to get a number for.
Right.
That's what we have to get a number for, get the one that's.
To see how
compliant,
much that one
See
is,
what's
yeah.
compliant, yeah.
I mean, if that's a $100,000 bleacher, that's, wow. That's
I
a
don't think
lot
that's
for a
for
bleacher.
one.
I don't-
It wasn't,
I
not for
can't s-
one,
I
Dave,
think
Yeah.
that was.
For-
Yeah,
to
that was,
replace
that was
all of
repurpose the
them.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
to
Yeah, I
replace
got you.
all of them.
Okay,
That puts them in about 17,
17.
20,000 apiece, somewhere around that area.
okay,
It seems high, but
yeah. I guess it's a lot of metal.
Like, you can't have the ones that are backless,
Correct.
because
right.
people then fall off the back. The one we have out there where you have chain link fence around it,
Exactly.
so,
I think if there are 3 tiers, I think you can have the backless ones.
Depending on the size.
I don't,
So,
Anyway, so sidetracked here.
and no, if I could get to the shared drive, I'm sure I have it,
Right.
but
Okay.
shall we go down this
The next
list?
thing- The next thing we have on there is the stormwater mapping. I know
Right.
we had discussed some of that in another meeting. I don't know if that's,
We talked about doing, the mapping for the stormwater, we might be better off moving that, considering what you're talking about with the bleachers and all, that would
Yeah,
probably
that-
be more appropriate to put in something like this funding, because we can do it quick,
the bleachers.
right?
Yes.
Um, whereas the stormwater mapping might take some time, and we can,
It's gonna take,
and we can do, you tell me what you wanna do, and I'll put it where I think it would go,
Yeah, I think
because we could just take money right out of our capital improvement fund without, and call it like a reserve for preliminary, we won't have to have any bonding costs or anything like that, and just do it.
yeah, I mean, because based on the discussions and the fact that we have the truck that's gonna be able to do some of that, we can do the mapping a lot in-house now.
Well, what's, the mapping going to entail? I mean, you have to identify what's a map. I mean,
Well, it's kinda like when, like we did with the sewer, study. They went
because
out
I
and
believe you're supposed to have all the inlets and outfalls have to be located with state plane coordinates,
Right.
so they can be dropped into an aerial map. So that's something, I
That's
don't know if we
beyond
can
our-
achieve
that's
that
beyond our
in-house
in-house.
unless we have GPS.
Is that something that's beyond what we can do in-house then?
No, it's not necessarily beyond. I mean, we may have to buy a handheld GPS unit, something that's gonna satisfy, what they need. I know the health department did a lot of them years ago.
Is the mapping something that we have to do by
Yes.
law? Okay.
And it also came up during an emergency management meeting
Mm-hmm.
too, like what could we do to make for resiliency and that kind of thing with our stormwater.
Is there like a benefit to having this map?
Where you know where all your assets are,
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
something,
If there's ever a
Something goes
compromised
wrong.
pipe, you don't know where it is right now.
Yeah.
well, and as we found, as we've been talking about in council meetings, is certain pipes that we don't even know, we can't even get anybody to claim ownership of the one pipe that we've been going back and forth
Right.
with the state. And it connects to everybody's system, but nobody will claim who touched it last.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that, at least if we map it, we know what's going through, and we know where to find things, because right now, they don't know where they run, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
They go to an outlet or an intake, and they can
So if
see-
there's an
they
issue,
can
they
see
don't
it go
even know how to
three
fix
different
it.
ways. You can see it go three different ways, by mapping it, then we can see where they all lead.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or
that's
even
what
more
we do.
important, if some toxic waste ends up in there, you know where it's headed.
Well, true, yeah.
Well, to
Let's
truly
hope for
map it,
something less
Yeah,
critical than that.
less invasive.
to truly map it, to find out where it's flowing to, you're gonna have to get the elevations and all. So there's a lot of work that's involved with that.
Okay.
Where'd we get the 250 figure?
From
Is
our,
that the money?
Yeah.
but that was an off-the-cuff budget thing when we were doing the OEM resiliency, meeting, but.
It seems crazy that that was never done, like when they,
Right.
when they put it in the, I mean, or it was done, and it was just lost.
Well, like I said, it's, different times we find that things that were done years in the past,
They didn't,
it may not have been documented as well.
yeah, they said it and forget it.
Yeah. So that being said, the mapping, so it's not gonna be zero, but it's gonna be something, we'll have to get a better
Right.
idea with our
That's gonna get
assistance,
us
what that
started.
number could be. Maybe it's half, maybe it's 2/3 of that number.
And Public Works has the equipment to do this?
They
To
have,
do some of it?
they're gonna be cleaning the pipes, they're gonna be out there doing that with the Vector truck,
Mm-hmm.
so that'll give them, they're gonna be on those sites.
Mm-hmm. So they can get the process started.
Yeah, yeah.
The mapping part has me concerned.
Huh?
The mapping part has me concerned.
Yeah.
The coordination.
I'd certainly be willing to volunteer my time to help out. It's an area I'm pretty familiar with.
Yeah, I can hold the thing.
I've done,
Hold the rooter and the camera or whatever.
Hold the
Pass
pole,
that to Tom,
don't end the survey team, I can do that.
Okay, so I can move that, sounds like we're gonna have to take that out of this funding and move it somewhere else. And I'll
In
put
the
it,
general revenue and
I'll put it in, the capital when we have that discussion for the mapping of the stormwater systems.
Okay. And we can look, try to get a tighter, get a better idea of what that.
Right, cause
what
that seems
cost
like it's
would
gonna,
be.
these are more, projects that we have to have completed this year and the next, so that might take us a while to get to, or decide what we wanna do.
but you don't want to bond it, do you?
That's what I said, you can do a resolution, it's called a reserve for preliminary expenses, and we say it's in conjunction with going to do some improvements to our stormwater systems. We'll just take it out of the money we have there.
Okay,
And the next was the HVAC system here for
Yeah.
City Hall, we really need one.
yeah, the meetings get quite warm in here.
Yeah, so,
And we did have the leaking issue over the summer, so yes, that seems like that's,
and the other thing I wanted to add, which I just found out today, that when our boiler folks were here doing the inspection, they said we're probably due for a new boiler. So we're waiting for a price estimate to replace that one.
That's an original boiler in there, isn't it?
It's old
Old.
and makes a lot of noise. I don't know, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
We have it
It's probably
inspected every year, and
inefficient.
he said it's probably something we want to think about in the near term to have replaced.
okay.
So I'm waiting for a price on that.
Upgrades.
That include the server?
That would include the server, and our servers are at their end of life.
Okay,
What are they, 8, 9,
yeah,
9 years old? We're doing some changes
we
where,
got one over the council before.
yeah, well, we moved away from the Exchange server, now we're doing Office 365, they're gonna host it, and we're gonna do different backups and stuff, but we're waiting for our IT provider to give us a plan,
Okay,
and that was kinda just a placeholder, that number.
and is this just equipment upgrades, or is also, I guess it is just the equipment upgrades?
That would be any equipment and whatever they recommend that we do. Cyber is a permitted use, and we would just spread that out through our budget.
Okay. The pagers, I think yes.
Fire pagers,
Yeah,
the price was brought down to 21,000.
okay. Anybody chime in at any point if you have questions, steel doors, is that all, where are these fire doors in here?
That's in the fire department.
In the-
I'm sorry, the 2 steel man doors, and the price estimate was 6,000 for those.
Okay.
And then the same
The
in,
overhead doors. I
right,
see,
and then the
okay.
4 overhead doors in the fire department. That was 44,000 was the quote for that. The ready room is also in the fire department. And that was for furnishings and those types of
Yeah,
things.
that stuff's been in there for quite some time. Are
And
these,
the roof is leaking.
I think we have the roof,
It's on the,
That's
and-
down.
yeah,
City Hall roof.
are the doors, is there issues with the doors, or, I mean,
yes,
uh,
I've seen it.
They're all rusted out.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I just wanna make sure that we're,
Yeah, no, it's a safety issue.
not like we're having a going out of business, yeah, we just make sure that we're neat and, okay. Picnic area in the Veterans Park, is that,
That was a request that I got, but that was before, I guess the Parks Committee met and, or they were gonna make some recommendations to that. Was this supposed to still stay in there? I was kinda confused today.
no. I guess we can leave it for now and then come back to that, I mean, I don't know.
Have a conversation with
Yeah,
somebody
go
about
back through that and make sure
Okay.
that that's as we're tightening up these numbers, that one will be one we can revisit, but,
Mhm.
the other one, the amphitheater, the same way with that one.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll put the question mark there. All right,
The pavilion is, when we talked about honoring Claire Moyer,
all right,
putting it out where the garden club used to be.
Okay.
So that's a recommendation coming through the advisory board.
That would be with picnic area and everything under it, right? Or just the pavilion?
That'll be separate, it's gonna have picnic tables underneath of it and everything, yes. It's separate from the other area we discussed today.
Yes, okay. All right.
quick question on the bandstand. Greg, you probably know where this 13,000 is gonna go for the bandstand. Is that refacing the entire bandstand?
I have to talk to somebody about that, because
Yeah. Seems light.
I need to get some more information on that, David.
Yeah, okay.
We're revisiting that one in the Veterans Park.
Yeah, you might have to add the Veterans Park.
Because they're talking about
Bandstand.
replacing the benches and everything, so.
Yes, those are,
Yeah, okay.
we're not sure if those are viable numbers.
It's a good project. It definitely needs it, but it just seems light.
Okay.
Well, it's a great pain to move that where it is.
The
Remember-
bandstand.
Yeah, remember.
Oh,
it
yeah,
used to
well,
be?
you're not gonna move it, right? You're just gonna
No.
redo it.
Put new benches and stuff out to get rid of the old concrete and wood slat benches, but they have slacks of them that we have to clean up and put back on the new benches, so
Right.
we have to do a little bit of inventory as well.
All right, next item
Yeah.
being the roof.
The roof,
The
yeah,
two
the
roof,
two,
okay.
yeah, it was broken up into 2 quotes,
Okay.
and so that's for this building and the whole thing.
And we did get these are actual quotes for the, wow.
They are.
Oh, the roof.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's gonna be, I don't know if it would be, is that, did you notice if it's replacement of some of those?
Well, I
So,
do know that for, Mary was the one who recommended this project, and for years, there's been a lot of heat loss through the roof,
Okay.
and it needs to be replaced.
Oh, yeah. Years ago, Bob James told me he stood across from City Hall with a heat gun in the dead of winter, and he said it lit up like a Christmas tree.
Wow. What's up is there any insulation up there?
Apparently not.
It wouldn't seem like it.
Have you been up there lately?
I've never been up there. I don't want to go up there, just so you all know.
This doesn't come with a second floor, does it? 128 and 98.
Wow.
I'm thinking now.
That's big.
So that's this entire building?
Yeah.
Yeah, the roof.
It's
$250,000
$250,000 to roof this entire building?
That seems a lot. It seems,
Is there something more to it than, I mean, excuse my ignorance, but is there something more to it than shingles?
Portion of it's flat.
this is flat over here.
Probably gonna take it down completely, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's
The-
just
the,
the
um,
very bottom.
the-
It just seems like a lot of money to roof the building.
This roof needs to be stripped.
Weight as well.
Roofs are expensive.
Right.
I don't think that's, I deal with construction all the time, and I don't think that.
It says,
$250,000 seems expensive to me.
This is just one quote, right?
this is from our architect.
From our
Who-
architect.
Yeah, who did the quote, right. Says demolish and remove existing modified bitumen build-up roof to insulated deck and install 1/8 inch per foot tapered insulation, prime roof board, thermoplastic roofing membrane with a 20-year warranty, flashing and the whole bit. And for the city side to demolish and remove existing asphalt shingle roof and install new underlayment and asphalt roof shingles, drip edge and accessories.
They're replacing all the wood or whatever's under there
Sheathing and everything.
before they put the
so
new
the-
roof in.
And it's probably gonna be more expensive, because he put a caveat, will be affected by external factors that have occurred in the US roofing industry, so supply chain issues.
Do we have to pay prevailing wage on that?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, that's,
and it's a bid, and
mhm.
the
That drives the
surety
cost
and
up
all
by
the costs.
least
Prevailing wage
30%.
threshold's
I
really
can
low, it's
send
like
all these out to
15,000.
everybody too.
Not gonna work, no.
Oh,
I'm in that building.
Yeah.
okay. We good with the roof? I know it's expensive,
Yeah,
but.
I mean, we need it.
Right, and the final item on the list is we desperately need a car for the code enforcement and the zoning office. They really need a car, there's nothing more to say about that. And because we can't really make money off our construction department, so we need expenses there. Otherwise, the state's gonna come in and take our money, so
And that would be more of a pool car for everybody, because they're all using their own vehicles now, which we don't want.
We do not want, so.
You said Crescent Hill's coming to an end, but now we have another project in the
Right.
pipeline that will also produce
Yeah.
revenue.
Two.
Too.
Dawn, is our
Gables and the
police
Veterans Building.
vehicle, SUV requesting here in this?
Not in this one, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Tom, something that, didn't really talk about, but I know previous years we, discussed, scanning, documents in. Do we have any interest in
I think-
doing,
I think some of the oldest documents would be a good idea to revisit that. We talked
Yeah,
about
we-
it earlier in the year.
Do we do it with the
I don't
new
know if
documents?
Is that something that would be, is that something that would fit in here or no?
I can stick it in there.
Do we do it with the new
It's a good
documents?
year this year, I don't know, so we'll
Certainly
be all
the
be
oldest,
amenable.
certainly the oldest documents, because, I mean,
No.
at the very least, because they're only gonna last in those books for so long. and-
Didn't get a recent price, but I'm thinking that we wouldn't want to scan anything that's not a permanent record.
Right,
And the advantage to scanning the sort of archival records that are in my office is a lot of it is legislation. So I'm tasked with researching the origin of a law, and right now that means reading through books to try and figure out when did we do this and why did we do it. So having all of that digitized would make searching so much easier. And it would make them all accessible to the public, because right now they're just on the shelf, they're in my office, but you can't ever get rid of them.
so can we just assign an amount of money and just, and chip away at it?
100,000?
We'll put it in, see where we come out.
I was thinking like 3,000 or 4,000.
No. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
When we looked at it
Per book.
with the vendor that came in and gave a presentation, it was 100,000.
Yeah.
And that was a good, but then it also preserves.
That was only building department.
And it also preserves the documents in case.
Pardon? No, that's a good start. I don't think it's advantageous to digitize non-permanent records. I don't think so.
No, I agree. And it's not, I think, again, like, as I said, the permanent records, at least then they're preserved in case something happens.
You mean if the roof caves in and they all get wet?
Yeah, or the building
Yeah.
burns down?
Well, we have a sprinkler system in our basement now,
Yeah, it's not-
where my records are.
Okay.
again, yeah, a pipe breaks, something.
Alright, so. We're waiting on a price then for bleachers, right?
Bleachers and
Everybody
water.
wanted that considered for this funding?
I will tell you that the fixed asset list shows the bleachers we bought in 2008. One set was 3,000, and that does not include the concrete powder installation. So that was
Oh, really?
25 years ago.
Yeah. Do we have the pads on
one
the
set.
other side?
What's that then?
Are the pads on the side that we
The
removed?
visitor side of the football field?
Yes, there's concrete pads.
Yeah.
There used to be chain link fence that was elevated. I think they took all that down when they got the
Okay.
backs on the bleachers.
Right.
I don't know if, I don't have any idea of an estimate for a boiler.
Nope. Kathy's getting a price for me, so
Okay.
the next time we meet, hopefully we'll fill this all in and then you can determine, what projects you wanna do, because taking out the mapping of the stormwater and moving it with different funding freed up
Yeah.
250,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we'll work on getting those prices for the next time. Then Greg, you're gonna do talk about the picnic area in Veterans Park, do we wanna do that?
Wanna wait till we get,
And then maybe the exercise equipment in the park, the 45,000 might be appropriate for this if you want.
Yeah,
wanna talk about it now, or you wanna wait till?
yeah, good time.
The other thing, what we were talking about is, the, current picnic area. It's not handicap accessible. So what we, I met with the engineer and through the advisory board and through the committee we talked about this morning, is doing some upgrades, putting paved walkway through there, wheelchair accessible, a couple pavilions, replacing the chain link fence that's there now with a post and rail fence to make it, kind of fit better with the atmosphere. We talked about that, and that's about somewhere around $105,000 to do that. The other thing that we discussed is basketball and pickleball courts. That would be on Campers Road, opposite where the museum is as you're heading back towards the old campgrounds on the left side. Putting 2 full courts in there and 4 pickleball courts in all site. Clearing and grading, that's about, parking, that's about $200,000, a little over $200,000.
That's for both the pickleball
The other
and,
thing we discussed is exercise equipment, similar to what the county has at Lake Lenape East. It's a concrete pad with various pieces of exercise equipment that's outdoor rated. You get 3 or 4 pieces on there, you're looking at about $45,000, so that's the other 3 things that we discussed. So, we want to, I don't know if you want to move forward that or just, have an open conversation about it, but it'd be nice to do something in the picnic area, I think.
The concrete walkways, that's the kind of thing grants are available for, aren't they? Don't they, well, handicap accessible?
The concrete, the asphalt walkways through the picnic area with handicap parking. I don't know if concrete would really suffice that, they have to form it.
What was that?
I don't think concrete would work out there, you have to form it, all their roots and stuff.
You're right, that's
The-
probably,
Recommends
the asphalt's a little more forgiving, it's a little more woodsy, as you would say,
What's that?
It would blend more in the atmosphere, I think.
The aesthetics of it.
Yeah, I think the asphalt's
Well, I
more,
think
it's cheaper
asphalt's a lot
too.
cheaper than
Yeah,
concrete.
much cheaper.
So, but I think going through the rooted area, I think asphalt would be better, it gives a little bit.
Mhm.
Concrete will break up once the trees start moving around.
Would that lead all the way to the pickleball and basketball courts and back to the bathroom?
Might make a difference.
I
but
like
if
it.
you designate that senior equipment, then it becomes an eligible use under the
Yes.
Community Development Block Grant, plus the accessible cap light.
Okay.
Set a way for,
With the community development block grant in this, or is it?
no, it's the
That's
one we
a
give from the
separate.
county, the ACIA, we
Yeah,
did
okay.
the, yeah,
I'm just making sure,
yeah, that's separate.
there's too many of these programs,
They're all
I'm trying to
going
keep
up.
track of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. Okay.
Greg, was there any we had discussed previously, like a frisbee golf was an option too? Did that come up at all?
No, that was not discussed. I need to get somebody that's got some expertise in that. We have to look at that, Brian. I have no idea where that would fit in, so certainly, we're looking to do a 3 or 4, 5-year plan. Certainly, I would be certainly interested in it, but I don't know much about it. I know that you have some contacts, so if you put me in contact with him, I would love to talk to him. I know how they do it at Cape May County.
I think it would cost to bring a professional in to do a master, like you say, a 3 to 5 year plan, so that we place these things strategically for both aesthetics and ease of use. I have no idea what that kind of thing would cost, but I hate to put, like I remember Atlantic City put in a bus station and then they tore it down and built another bus station. It's like, is there a plan here? Instead of just throwing things in, so that something like that, even if we don't do it now, could be planned for the future and, people wouldn't have to walk through the disc golf to, get to whatever it is they're getting. A master plan.
A site plan.
I don't know how
Yeah.
Cape May County gets away
Yeah,
with
like
it.
a mapping of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what.
You've seen theirs, right?
Obviously, you have to,
And looks at all the acreage, and, there's a lot of land out there that's underutilized, and, I don't know, I just think it might be cost, and again, I have no idea what that would cost. But, so we place these things strategically, because I'd hate to backtrack.
Well, that could cost half of the basketball court, you know? So, I don't know,
I have no idea what it costs. Maybe Remy would have an idea or something.
I think they got it, I don't know, I
I
think
think,
your
you know,
plan
part of
of where
our-
you're
yeah.
putting things is pretty good. I mean, it's just two basketball courts, right, and some pickleball courts in the old camper.
No, for
Campers,
instance, the
area.
pickleball court, there's no bathroom over there. Pickleball is primarily played by seniors.
Yeah.
Like a bathroom close by. And
Well-
It's not a bad idea.
Let's put another bathroom in.
What,
that's what you
is
end up
is
doing.
the other,
You end up
is,
chasing
Yeah,
one project
I-
after another, and you end up spending more than you
Well, it's
would
gonna
if you had
take-
professional.
Then don't
Yeah.
forget, Paul, there's bathrooms in the tan snack bar, which is, you know, a
Yes.
stone's throw, I mean,
From where
so,
you're playing the pickleball.
yeah.
Right.
That's why I said, as long as you have a
Right.
pathway, I don't think it's a big deal. But the other thing was the disc golf, where we could put that.
that's
That
a,
campground access road may make the most.
Brian, isn't that more of like a, you
we
gotta throw
talked about
it
it a little bit.
there, and then you walk there, and then you gotta throw it, you might be through the whole park by the time you've done 18 holes, right?
Even if you did nine.
So, I
you did
mean,
9 holes with that.
I think you can,
But that's
maybe
what I
you can
was thinking.
incorporate the basketball court and throw right between,
Like around the world.
yeah.
At Cape May County, at their park, I mean, they're throwing right through the parking area, people are picnicking,
It's true.
Yeah,
things are flying right
bounce
by
it
them.
off that person's head into the,
That's a liability.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, it could be on the other side of the park, on the other side of the road, where there's,
Behind
you know,
that, yeah, start
behind where the.
it back where the old camping
tower
section is and go back to where it's
Oh.
open.
No, I was talking
On the other side?
north of that, like,
Yeah.
between the volunteer fire company and the school.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what's out there. I don't know if that's an option, I'm just saying. There's nothing there, it's just trees, right?
Some of the
Right.
north side's pretty wet, though.
There's
Yeah.
That's all.
there's a Comcast
You
building back
could, you
there.
could start it at the football field, really, I mean,
Woods.
it's just a hole and a tee.
We don't own
Practice
that.
field
You
in
could,
back.
you could have hole
We don't
one,
own
Well,
right,
that, so then, I mean, that's something,
Where the pad is and the tower
But it
and
would
all
need to
that.
be planned, someone need to look at all that, look at the ground.
that's
cover.
something that's gonna be regular capital, I guess.
The pickleball and the basketball courts, probably the picnic area, the pavilions and the walkway, and any other thing. I'm gonna put that in the capital.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
They won't
Because
really fit
there
into
won't
this.
be enough in here.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But that's
35
okay, we have
35.
everything together, and now you just have to pick the priorities.
Right.
So
Yes.
I'll put the list together, and then you'll just decide what you wanna do, what you wanna do in the short term, what we wanna plan for in the long term.
Okay.
No, not capital.
I guess that's all that we have, that's next item.
Okay. So on page 7, that is our last 5-year capital plan, and that's what we're working on, and that's what we're gonna go out to the market for and fund these things, right? And I put what was completed and what's in process. Like, we have the voucher truck on order, and we're waiting to get a bid for the garage or the pole barn to put it in. The other thing was the OEM vehicles. We purchased one last year. There was funding for about 2. They were expensive. So we have to decide, you have to decide, if you want the second OEM vehicle, because there's funding for that. And if you wanna do it, the lead time on vehicles is really long now.
Right.
The 2 vehicles was what, 166,000?
That was
That was including. the-
175 was the vehicles and equipment.
And equipment.
We're at the light towers, which we received, well, I hope we received them, cause I saw the
They're
bill
here.
for them. Okay.
They're here.
The vehicles were,
Do you have any place to store those?
There's one at the city yard, and we have one next to our trailer.
Get that inside somewhere?
Well, they're designed for outside.
is that current SUV that we have, is that,
On order?
yeah?
Yeah.
Do you remember if they, was that roughly 60,
44.
44?
$44,500.
Okay.
Complete.
Those with the equipment and everything? Okay.
pays to know somebody.
Well, not a state contract.
No, we'll stay in contact.
Yeah, I'll stay contact.
All right, we also had funding in there for the sign for the municipal building. I put LED. I know there's issues with the planning board where they're having that, but that was just my reference. And that price is up to about 25,000 now, but we have money we can transfer around to cover that, so that's not an issue. But you see what else has been done and funded. Road and drainage improvements, we just work from that as we need to, match with our DOT grants and that kind of thing. So pretty much everything on here is accounted for except the sign and, like I said, the second OEM vehicle. So I guess you'll want to think about that.
Yeah, is that we currently have one SUV that they're talking about switching over, is that gonna replace that or not? Or is that was just temporary until we get another?
Well, the one that I was talking about was just temporary because of the Charger that I'm using. Couldn't get out in the snow, so I ended up using my personal car, my personal SUV. So I just was gonna suggest that we take the one that's just sitting in the city yard.
Okay, so they weren't gonna change it over, they were just gonna, okay.
And the one that we did order is on order, but we don't have an anticipated delivery date because they're having a problem getting vehicles.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could be well over a year. That was the same thing with the police vehicle, SUV.
yeah.
Well, they were waiting on the camera
Well,
to come in. That took a year from March.
that's only part of it. There was more, but it's still over a year
Yeah.
it took us to get.
Yeah, let's, well, for now, let's leave it in there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, and so that was the last plan, and then I also put the new, all I had,
Yeah, on the, quick question on the pump stations?
right.
Greg, do you know which station which station would serve the Gables and which station would serve Crescent Hill? Do you know which ones?
I am not certain, Doug.
Okay.
Crescent Hills Davis.
Right.
It's not the Mill Road, Greg, would it be the Mill Road station?
Yeah, that's the one, we did do a study on it, so,
I thought you said it was Rosedale.
yeah.
I think
Rosedale.
Bell's
Could be
right.
also Rosedale,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's one that rows down the bike path, that's probably the one that services it.
Okay, so that one's already done.
But
And I don't
Which
think-
one's
I don't
Rosedale
think it's
two?
the one on Cedar Bridge, is it?
Which one's Rosedale 2?
What was that, Tom?
There's the Cedar Bridge, number 6, and then number 7, Rosedale. I think 7 is down. I don't know if that's the one that's gonna service that. In any event, I think we should look into that to make sure that between now and when that project comes on, that we have that one.
Yeah, that'll be in our next, the next one, the 2022 to 2026 one.
Okay.
We would put that in.
I think the study that was done said that there's no upgrade needed now, but that it will. The one that services
Right,
Gables.
once it can handle what's
Yes.
anticipated, but once it starts
Okay, so we need to put one of them in
Once
there.
it starts getting what's anticipated over a course of time, I think it's gonna need to get, that would have to be one of our next upgrades.
Any issue with what's going to service the Veterans Facility?
I have to talk to Quinn about it. That would probably be Zion. It's right across the street.
Yeah. Yeah, so that should be designed, so that
We
would
just
be, that would be
upgraded,
done
we just
by then.
upgraded that
Oh,
one.
we hope.
Well, we're
No,
in
we
the
didn't do it,
process
we
of-
didn't do it
That's
yet.
Infrastructure
But we
trust
should
one
look at
that
what the
we're-
capacity of that building is
Well, the
when we do
project's
it.
not, there's no shovel on the ground yet, so,
Yeah, because we're doing the tons of paperwork.
I meant for the actual buildings.
Oh, okay,
The
that one, yeah.
veteran.
We
Well,
might be
not-
done at the same time.
Mary just had a really great point that, with the new facility going there, we need to look at that to see if that
Yeah,
pump station is gonna hold that capacity.
yeah, yes.
Well, we shouldn't increase the load that much. It's not a residential facility.
I don't know, it seems like it's going to be
Is it-
really
is
big.
it- Yeah, and we're in the plan, is it,
It's a medical facility.
It's a medical
with
facility,
a
but
lot
is
of,
it, is it a is it clinic type where it's,
clinic type.
Yeah, so
outpatient?
it's
It's
not-
Therapy
outpatient.
rooms,
It's
so, yeah,
not-
a lot of.
Okay, so it's outpatient, so it's not,
It's not
It's
staying,
it's not gonna
okay.
be any overnight where,
So that
where it
should-
would increase that much?
should be-
Not right now.
Okay. In any event, since we know it, we should
Keep it in mind.
keep it in mind to anticipate, we may need, we may,
All right,
may need to
so-
look at that pump station for,
So two, right, pump stations probably in this 5-year
Yeah.
timeframe.
Paul, what, on the veterans, facility, do you remember the size of that compared to what the current one is? How much of an increase it is?
Well, it's certainly larger, but again, I don't think, because a lot of it's therapy, in other words, meetings, things like
Okay,
that.
oh, okay.
Now, there is a new daycare center going up with 153 small children and teachers on Ridgewood.
Oh, yeah.
Road. That's more likely to impact, the overall capacity.
Where's that going, Paul?
Ridgewood and New Road.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I got it.
travel agency.
Yep.
Okay.
Field's up now.
So that's probably. That's gonna be one of the other great bills.
Only take kids that aren't potty trained.
Except when it's, yeah.
We still have sewer, we have money that we appropriated this prior plan.
Okay.
2000, so there's money there too. Okay, and page 11 was the preliminary capital request that I received from all the departments, and then I got more today, so that'll be updated the next time we meet. I believe a lot of this has changed, and Public Works, I think, didn't want to replace one of those. They decided they wanted to get rid of one or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Pickup
What's
truck
that,
for,
what is it coming out?
Yeah, one of the.
yeah, but more are going in. So I'm gonna switch those around and put something together for the next meeting. I'll add something in for the pump stations. So what we had on here was the fire truck, the ladder truck, and the fire department SUV to replace the 1995 Tahoe, a walk-behind mower, and then we always put something in for roads and sewer, and we want to come to like 4.9 million is what we usually do over the 5 years. If we go over 5, then we have interest arbitrage issues, and we try to avoid that,
Yeah. And the
even though
other,
the rates are so low, but sometimes.
and as far as the ladder truck goes, I think it's, the numbers are increasing.
Everything else is, the numbers we've seen so far, are through middle spring, as far as, their guarantees on those numbers.
What are
Of
those?
course, that's something that's gonna have to go out to bid and everything else, so
Yeah.
it ain't gonna be through bid before
So what are we up to now?
that time.
And what ballpark are we in now? It's not 1.2 anymore, is it?
No, right now, it's about 1.2.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Did we have? Yeah. We met just
Ridgewood has a
recently.
100-foot ladder truck now, right? It's 10 years old from Ocean City?
Let's check on the age, but
That's
they
what they-
bought it from Ocean old, okay.
Is that, is there any way to utilize their ladder truck?
Replace,
Instead of, sharing between the two towns, their ladder truck, for things like press and mill and be able to wall that.
it all comes
That's a
down
great
to
idea.
response.
Kreischer.
Right, of course.
Right now, there's not an automatic response from that ladder.
Right now.
That's a great idea.
But that's a policy change.
If such an agreement was to change, could that potentially negate the need for another ladder truck here?
If that ladder was to roll on every fall, that fall, it's a potential. Again, you're talking about a lot of, right, that's more than just a ladder showing up, right? I mean, that's, now we have two departments and it's being activated for all of Northfield
For every ladder.
calls that
Right.
require that. So, likewise, I know before there was questions about same thing with Pleasantville, right, also has a ladder there.
When we looked at it, we really need to get it on location and in place, before we start laying hose lines and everything, because once we do that, you're not able to get it close to the building.
So it would work if we could park it here.
Yes.
Did it leave keys there?
Chief, how old is the 63?
The ladder itself is 55 years. The cabin chassis is probably 22, 23 years.
Yeah, and it's getting to the point, well, it's been for several years financially, to keep fixing it. It's almost, and that was a second-hand truck that we purchased. So I think it's reaching its end life.
Yeah, how many people?
The other thing,
how many
to keep in mind,
people
what I'm saying also, you know, you have to understand is, it's a two-department response.
Yeah.
In other words, just getting that ladder in front of our scene in a timely fashion.
I am literally talking about parking it here. You don't have a building over, I don't think 60 feet in that town.
I mean, if you're talking about taking the ladder truck, that's a different topic, right? But what I'm
I don't know how
concerned
they'll
about
feel about
is,
that.
if I get that ladder in front of my seat,
Right.
I also need their manpower
To run it,
Yeah.
to run it, right?
unless you're cross-trained in order to connect, it. Park here, cross-trained, and now we respond with our ladder truck to them for their. I don't know, if it's possible, it's a big ticket item, and if there's a wiggle, if there's any wiggle room, without impacting the taxpayers, 100%. I'm not, I know we need that, that's clear, but, you know, I don't think they use it. I'm sure we need it.
Ocean City got rid of it for a reason.
Yeah.
And Linwood, yes, and Linwood has spent significant money repairing it and keeping it in service.
Yeah, for one.
I didn't say that, I said Ocean City got rid of it for a reason.
Ocean City stated publicly at the time that they replaced that ladder, because they replaced it with another ladder, right? That their maintenance costs were around $60,000 at the time that they replaced. That was their public statement out.
What brand is that? I'm not getting that.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Like, you know, I mean, as I've said before, when Chris body,
Yeah.
it's, you know, one of the single most expensive pieces of equipment in town. Right? And they are significant pieces of equipment, that's why they're so expensive, it's not just, they can get from,
Yeah.
to go, but it's a complex piece of machine.
So divided by now, 20 years.
How many people are needed on to get that out the door? You know, to respond? You need, can one person drive it and then?
One person can drive it.
One person can drive it and then, okay. It's not like the old ones where you had to have a guy in the back. We got beyond that, thank God? Okay,
No, they still use those.
yeah?
Chief,
I guess still use, yeah.
currently, you're not capable of pumping water to that top of that tower, are you?
Not through the standpipe,
Right.
the last test that we had, the seals on the standpipe failed.
So regardless, that has to be fixed.
Yes.
And what is the cost on that?
I haven't gotten a proposal back on it yet.
Do you have an idea, just being in the industry?
No, I
No.
don't.
That's the
And that we're gonna have to spend
We-
either way because
Yeah.
They were replaced a few years ago. That's a project in itself, because the people that did it are up in Pennsylvania. So we have to haul up 2 or 3 hours away and then go pick it up. That was quite a project when they did it last time.
Do you know what the cost was?
No, I
When that
don't,
happened? Yeah.
not off the top of my head.
If the ladder truck gets approved for this capital campaign, this budget cycle, when would you expect delivery?
24.
20 months after we accept the bid. That was the last estimate.
So probably 2 years.
Yes.
So then the repair of the other has to happen either way, sorry. Gotta have something in the meantime. Okay.
Are we actively looking for used ones on the market? We are not. Like I said, with the land ocean cities, if you buy a used piece of equipment, you don't necessarily know what you're getting. But the one that we have now is purchased used, correct?
What we have now was originally purchased by the city of Northfield 50 years ago. It's a combination, right? So the aerial section, the ladder,
It's a Frankenstein.
was originally purchased 50 years ago by the city of Northfield. The ladder was then removed and remounted onto a new chassis that was purchased new by the city of Northfield.
Okay.
And it was a brand new chassis.
Yes,
And that was how many years ago?
that was 22, some years ago.
22 or 23.
And what's the natural progression of these trucks? 25 years?
We try to operate on a 28-year
28.
replacement cycle. So,
Yeah, right now, our oldest engine, I believe, is 31 years old,
Mhm.
and this is the next oldest.
and this one too, I mean, right, obviously, the chassis itself, we're not at that 28-year goal, but we're dealing with this combined 50-year-old aerial. And also the height limitations on that too, that's which the town has changed
Right.
dramatically in 50 years.
And the 31-year-old ladder runs pretty good, or not ladder, but truck runs pretty good, and you might be able to squeak out another 4 or 5 years on that maybe,
We hope to get at least that many.
which
out.
would make up for the loss on the other.
All right.
I'm sorry, I go back to this. Is there an active used market?
So,
Like, I mean, I know,
there is a used fire truck line.
I was thinking a million, when it first came up last year, I was thinking a million was a big chunk. And now it's 1.2, I've heard 1.6 previously, so it's a huge chunk. So I guess I would push that question again is, why aren't we looking for used vehicles potentially? If you get one 10 years old, that can last for 15 years at a fraction of 1.2 million. So,
So there is a used market. Most of the vehicles that are on that used market, as far as ladder trucks, tend to be at that 15 to 20-year mark. But most towns are not looking to put these things in 3 years or 5 years or even 10 years. You can occasionally find something that has a ladder on it that is, younger, right? Just the same as there's older, there's a whole range of that. And what I mean by when I say you can find something is, there's a lot of different types and sizes of ladder trucks on the market. We've actually taken the process of going around town, looking at some of the, areas that we need to be able to reach, and deal with. And have decided that a 100-foot ladder is what is necessary for the town. Because remember, it's not just up and down, but it's also that reach. For example, the Northfield Community School, the way that building is configured currently with the setbacks, it is difficult to reach that roof sizes. So, does it have a 300-gallon tank? Does it have a 500-gallon tank? Does it have a 700-gallon tank? All that makes a difference depending upon how each department runs. So the ladder that we were looking, at as far as those ideal specs for Northfield, to meet Northfield's needs, currently we're looking at a 500-gallon tank. So they're all, so in other words, there's a used market, you can look for it, but there's a lot of boxes that have to be checked in order for it then to, kind of hit all the parameters.
Has any of the other technology changed significantly over the last 10 years?
What's changed the most is for firefighter safety, just not just getting the, the ladder there, but getting the manpower that are on the ladder, to this. So that's changed significantly as well in 10 years. Crew cab construction, et cetera. Airbags, braking systems.
But as an example, do you know how tall is what's the length of a ladder truck that Linwood did get?
It's 100
I
foot.
believe that's 105 foot.
Oh, it is 100, okay. I thought it was shorter, all right. Do you know what that was, like, on that used market for a mediocre?
I don't know what that
I
is.
didn't know if anybody was
They paid 800,000 or something.
Well, you want to divide that cost on the
Well,
length of,
we paid 800
the
over
length of the
20
year,
years
over
of
the
that
years
money.
that you have left in that vehicle too, because you might, you never know, you might be at the same thing with a new one. You
I
know what
agree.
mean? Where
Well,
the new one's gonna last you 25 years or 28 years
that's
or
what I
30
was
years.
asking,
You look at that improved
You
technology.
take the used one and you pay 800 for I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm just saying, if you paid 800 for a used one for 15 years,
With increased maintenance costs.
1.2 for
Right.
30 years is a much better deal, right?
I mean, one thing I hope you guys, everyone here can see is the department is very conservative with the equipment we have and with our replacement of that equipment. I mean, to say nothing more than if you look at the next, vehicle listed on here, 1995 SUV, right? We certainly don't go out and look for the shiniest, newest thing and ask you to buy it for us on a regular basis.
A 1995 SUV that tends to break down quite often, if I remember correctly. Okay.
So, another piece that is, a active line, engine 6.7 out there is, an open cab fire truck, right? I mean, you out there looking,
Oh, yeah.
right? Can you point to another department that is running an open cab fire truck, right? You actually can't buy them anymore
Right.
because of the safety reasons.
And Dawn, when you calculate your just under $5 million, this ladder truck is in there, right?
We talked about it a lot last year, and
Yeah, I don't see anywhere on it.
the other truck got a year older.
And it's not up to its normal capacity.
Excuse me?
It's not up to its normal capacity, but it should be able to do right now,
Yeah,
so.
all right.
One more question for Dawn. If we do go to bond, and you say as soon as possible, how long does that process take? I mean, the Fed's gonna raise interest rates probably 4 times this year, up to 2% this year. So by the time we get around to it, it's probably up another point, right?
It does take some time, takes a couple months. Mostly it's dealing with the ratings agencies, getting our preliminary and official statements done and that kind of thing. But,
And what is our rating now?
triple A minus.
What is it?
I think it was double A minus.
Double A minus?
Yeah.
And we have the surplus to support
Mhm.
that, correct?
Mhm.
And, so do you have any idea what kind of rate you're looking at? I mean, is that old debt really at 8-point-something%?
Oh, that at 8, no.
No,
What did I have?
I think he's looking at useful life.
Oh, no, that's the average useful life. It's a weighted average, so the bond law says like your SUVs are only 5 years, but your sewer are 40, so it's theoretically, you've paid off your trucks in the first years, right? That, and I use that to try and mix, so I don't end up with a bond that only has a 5-year lifespan.
Okay, is there anything else on the capital?
Not yet.
No, it's gotta be updated, right?
I'm
Okay.
gonna update it with everything I got today.
All right. All right, any other input from council? Anybody have anything before we open to the public?
So just wanna, make sure, one of these, public works trucks, either the F-450 or F-350 is being removed, is that right?
Yeah.
One truck is probably being removed. I don't remember which one it was.
I believe it's the,
What did he say
I think
today?
it's the 350 because they want to keep the dump truck.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, they want,
I
the
think
dump truck
you're right.
still has use.
Yeah,
That's gonna be, another thing I just happened to,
Oh, wait, no, is it, they're not gonna replace the dump truck.
I don't know, he
They're
sent me a
keeping
big
the dump
long
truck,
list
so
today,
that's the one that
so
comes off. The dump truck comes off because they're keeping the one they have.
this
Okay.
is gonna change.
well, that's gonna be another issue. I just happen to know from my home life that getting a F-350 right now, not gonna happen. They can't get them.
Anyone else? Okay. At this time, we'll open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak may do so at this time. We ask that you maintain a 5-minute limit per speaker and state your name and address for the record. Any Zoom?
I have one person in Zoom, but there's no indication that they'd like to speak.
Okay. Seeing none, we will now close the public session. Our next council meeting will be February 8th, 6 PM work session with the regular meeting to follow. May I have a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Have some sandwiches and pastries.
We're going to the crash.
There's plates, like small plates.